Love this. I really like this, going it down. I'm gonna hold it down now.
I think you just have to have it on. It should be on now. Oh, hold it down one more time. And then try talking into it.
Hello.
There you go. There you go.
No? Yes, no, yes.
Yes.
The housekeeping on the microphone is that the purpose of the microphone, as I understand it, is for the minutes. The purpose of John's computer is like help us understand what John means. So we're gonna pass it along, it'll be a little bit clumsy, there are two microphones here. And it will probably be a little bit of extra effort to get it out to you all who are not at the table. But we will have that so that we can be on the minutes as well. All right. That being the case, I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order at whatever time it is. And we'll go and we'll have a roll call. It's a start at that end of the table where Highlands President Mark Franco is not.
Thank
you. Actually, I better do it because the microphone's gonna be a pain here. I'll pass it, we'll see how it goes. I think you have to talk me to the end of it, and there's Mark. So it worked out great.
Mark Nicholas, Grandma Highlands.
Sarah Hardy, South Coast Treasurer.
John Niles, California State Parks. BSBO is library. Dan Middlesty, Mid Coast.
Why did you live in the March?
Lady, Caltrans, Central Coast.
Heather Chevrolet Lanier, Big Sur, Hopper, resident.
Rick Aldinger, Big Sur Chamber of Commerce. I'm here. Martha, maybe.
And so that we do have a quorum. Again, we do have a quorum and we can go ahead with this. We have a number of people in the audience, which we pass the mic around because we didn't have a sign-in sheet, and you can all tell us who you are as well.
Mike Higgins, Post Grant.
Rachel Goldberger, Community Association of Big Sur. Shelley Earhart, Community Association of Big Sur.
Patty Cronlin, Community Association of Big Sur.
Mike Dipple, Chief Ranger, California State Parks.
John Ayers, CHP Big Sur resident list.
Dave Ammon, Parks Management Company, Piper Beach.
Sharon Peterson Wilson.
Parker Erickson, U.S. Forest Service. I am Steve Novick, I live at Watkins.
Battery pump, please time.
Oh, no. No.
Oh dear.
We can use this one.
I'm so amazed any technology works here for so many years, it didn't.
This one, this side, this one.
That would be Sarah who does everything, and we didn't do Katie and Sarah who are here from housing and community development making all of this possible. And start by thanking them. We're going to try to incorporate the Zoom participants in this meeting as well. And I am going to, at this time, assume that they know how to do this. So we're just going to ask that when we get to the public comment, we'll go to the people in the room first. If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand function and we'll try to get to you subsequent. That being the case, Katie, do we have any agenda additions, deletions, or corrections?
Oh my gosh. We have letters. No, we do not have any additions or deletions. Thank you.
Very good. All right. At this point, we are going to go to the next item, which is public comment on items that are not on the agenda for today. Going to ask that you keep those comments relatively short. I'm not going to run a 3-minute, but if I ask you to sum up, please do that. And I'd also ask you to try to comment on things that have something to do with the byway. We had a number of people at the planning commission commenting on issues recently that we had absolutely no control over, and so that was not a good use of everyone's time. So on this general topic, you know, as succinct as y'all can manage, who would, in the public would like to speak, they have to come and get the microphone. There's a
I replaced these ones, so if anybody in the public would like to speak, I can pass you this
I
microphone.
think Sharon had her.
Oh, it's the big.
Oh, it's the big speaker. That's what's going on. Okay, apologies.
We're working on it. No worries. I just had a quick question. The minutes, if continued, can we find them online somewhere or is it just for the meetings?
It answered if this works, and even if it
Yeah, I
doesn't.
thought this was here.
That's all right, we're gonna give it a try. The minutes are available after the meetings at some point, I don't know that it's right away, on the county website. And if you just type Big Sur Byways Organization into your search bar, it takes you to that county page. And that provides you with a lot of information, including agendas, minutes, appropriate documentation that have to do with byways of all kinds, the traffic count link. In general, everything you need should be on that page at some point, even if it's not right away.
Perfect, thank you.
And I think, Steve, did you have also a comment?
Yeah, just a quick question regarding the committee itself.
Right. Use it anyway.
Bluetooth mode,
Oh, okay.
Bluetooth connected,
We should do this.
battery low, please charge.
I see on the website that a number of the positions are expiring here in a few weeks, and I'm kind of curious. Who are you? Where do you come from? Who elects you? Are there term limits? Can you just briefly explain what's going on with that?
Yes. The Big Sur Byways organization was established by the Monterey County Board of Supervisors in response to, call out.
Bluetooth
both
mode.
the Coast Highway Management
Bluetooth
Plan
connected.
by the Big.
Battery low, please charge. Power
Yeah.
off.
I don't know who this lady is, she's not on my list. The terms that expire, the general rule that we've been going by for all the years I've been working in County of Monterey is that people who are appointed continue to serve until they're either replaced or removed. Those appointments will then be processed through to the Board of Supervisors, who have appointed all of the members of the committee. The purpose of the committee is to help implement the Coast Highway Management Plan and the Big Sur Land Use Plan and go into more depth into items that come up at BSBO. So far as I'm aware, we don't have any determinate function. If you are interested in serving, please just write a note to your supervisor if there's a place for you. There are resident representatives from Big Sur different districts. We'd be happy to hear if somebody wants to serve. I think right now we finally got filled in, we took a long time to do that. So in terms of what we do, we're able to talk in more depth about things relating to the byway, which is the highway one from the Carmel River Bridge, technically all the way down to Cambria, but we haven't got representatives from San Luis Obispo County, so we're to the county line. And we talk about stuff, but try to collaboratively come up with some good ideas and solutions so that the people who can work. Okay? All right, I'm getting a nod. That's a good thing. I appreciate it. Anybody else here want to speak? Katie?
I just want to chime in that we won't be using the microphone for this meeting, so just use your loud voices.
Yay!
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, Katie, but that's just fine with me.
And we also have some folks online.
Yes, I was gonna go to online next. So Katie, who we got online?
I have some comments from Bruce Merchant, so I can read his comment out loud. And if anyone wants to, they can raise their hand and I can promote them to panelists to provide their public comment as well. Bruce Merchant commented and said, once again, I asked that what is being done to improve the safety at Sobranes. There has been some mention of the speed limit reduction as has been done at Garrapatta Beach, but no changes yet. This is the most dangerous area north of Garrapatta, and we have already had a fatality The speed limit is still 55 miles per hour. If it is impossible to change the official speed limit, can we get some advisory speed limit signs and warning signs of people crossing the road? The same issue exists at Monastery Beach, admittedly outside of the Big Sur LUP, where there is 1.5 mile stretch of 55 miles per hour between 45 miles per hour sections. And he also submitted that comment via email.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Bruce. Anybody else online? Not hearing from you. Okay, nobody else online, so I'm gonna go ahead and close the public comment period and move on to the next item, which is the approval of the minutes of November 19th, 2025, I believe. I don't think we've gotten 2026 yet. From the panel, are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? The audience, is there anything that you think should be corrected in the minutes online? Not seeing anyone, I'm gonna bring it back to the panel for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion from Rick to approve the minutes as presented and a second from Dan. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no, and the minutes stand approved. Thank you, Katie, for doing the minutes. All right, scheduled matters. The first piece is to elect a chair and vice chair, which we do at the first meeting of every year. So I am now open to nomination for chair and vice chair.
I make Martha for chair.
And there's been one nomination for chair for me. Anybody?
I would just suggest nominate, the current chair and vice chair to continue in their,
Would you be
No
willing
roles.
to modify your motion to that?
Sure.
Okay, so, the motion's been modified to continue the, current chair, which is me, and vice chair, which is Dawn. And it's been seconded and amended by Rick. Further discussion, further nominations are absolutely open. Seeing none, then we go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. And the ayes have it, and John and I are gonna continue on doing whatever it is that we do. Until further notice,
Still told not.
until told not to. All right. John, I think you and your team are gonna talk about the Lime Kiln Bridge. And this viaduct, I don't know anything about, so I'll be very interested to hear.
Very good.
Okay, turn out. Right.
Well, that's part of today's presentation, right? So, hello, everyone. John Olenek, Caltrans Central Coast. Nice to be with everyone for our meeting this year. And with me today, I have Scott Smith, one of our senior environmental program managers, and Al Kimmel, transportation planning, he'll be on the agenda later for the Coast Highway Management Plan. But to start off today's agenda item is we wanted to bring forward conversation, discussion about two important projects. One of them is the Lime Kiln Bridge Replacement Project. Yeah, that sounds familiar. We'll explain why that sounds familiar. We're going to give you an update of where we are with that. And closely, in close proximity to, but separate from, is another project. It's a viaduct project that's become necessary. And it's called the Queagle Viaduct Project. And we'll explain a little why Queagle is the name and how we chose it. And kind of the homage to the history behind that location. So two very important projects. Today's item is just informational. We are, as I've tried to do over the many years, bring projects as we learn of them and as they're developing, bring updates to the community. So that's why we're here today. And I'll give it to Scott. I don't know if you're able to sign in with PowerPoint. I have it ready if not.
I'm in. Do I need to be promoted to a participant, Kate?
One moment. I sent you a request to be promoted to panelist. Did you receive that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So two projects we're going to talk about today. And Scott, if you like, you want to get your laptop, I'm happy to hold it while you present or however.
So the project first one we want to talk about is the Quego Permanent Restoration Project. It's a viaduct, actually,
Yeah.
and I will yell. We currently have a failing crib wall you see in this picture below the highway, that we are looking to resolve with this new project. The project location is 0.1 miles south of the current Limestone Bridge, very close. It's in Monterey County on the Big Sur Coast at post mile 20.8. The history of the project name. So Queagle was a place recognized by the Mission San Antonio priests and later as a multi-village Salinan district. Queagle is located in the Lopez Point region where Limecomb Creek is located, and the project name Queagle was considered and selected by consultation with the Salinan tribe on Monterey and San Luis Obispo counties. So we kind of thought it was a cool thing. We had a very bland name on this before. It was the Lime Kiln Viaduct. That just didn't sound great. I mean, it's fine. So through consultation, we changed the name to the Queagle Viaduct and kind of a cool homage. The current project, we completed a categorical exemption and a categorical exclusion. It was a CECD project. We look to complete right-of-way acquisition in 2027, design at the end of 2027, advertising for bids in 2028, begin the construction mid 2028, and construction to be completed early 2030. What is not in this timeline here is there are permit acquisitions necessary, obviously, before while we're completing design, and that's when we plan on doing a lot of. Sorry, realizing talking to your guys.
Yeah, we set up something and moved the table so everybody could see everything.
Apologize. We want to be able to interact with you and talk about different elements of the project. That'll happen as we normally would with outreach and also as part of our consultation for permitting folks like the Coastal Commission. Yeah, you have some renders of the finalized work. It's very small. Hold on a second, get bigger. But what I don't have in future slides is kind of this overview. You'll see the crib wall is no longer there, and we have the viaduct above on the roadway. And then you'll see the two biz sims of the roadway from the driver's perspective. So this is, I believe this is heading north, northbound view, and this is the type 85 barrier that we plan on, or we currently have planned to install on the structure itself on the seaward side. And this is the southbound view of the same barrier and viaduct. Traveling public, likely anyone that ever sees this thing will not see the viaduct itself. It will look like a roadway. The only thing you'll really be able to see is the actual railing on the top side. There is a website currently available. There was a QR code that we were gonna get. I don't have it available here, but it's on our standard Caltrans website. John, do you have the ability?
Is it on the next slide?
I don't think it didn't make it into my update. Maybe if you have an updated, you can share with the top of me, but there's a website for the project if you want more information or want to interact on it. And we will obviously be coming back and talking more about the project at future time. There are contacts here for our project manager, senior environmental planner. Ryan Caldera is the project manager on the project. Lucas Marcellus is a senior that reports to me. He is the senior environmental planner or senior environmental scientist, sorry, for the project. And then Eduardo Enriquez is our environmental scientist assigned to the project. And that is it. Very short and sweet. Just wanted to introduce it. Take any input you might have. Any questions? No questions?
No, let me just start by thanking you for bringing me here this early in the process. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Good. Is a type 85 barrier, is that another name for a guardrail?
Yes, I mean, essentially, yes.
That being the case, I think I can speak for many people that, that design is not, consistent with the historical character of bridge rails and guardrails and the like on Highway 1. And so what are the options to provide input and have that design change to something more appropriate?
Good input. John,
Which slide would you like?
yeah, I can just go back to the southbound view with the type 85 barrier. I think it's like the third to the last slide somewhere there. Next one. I think it's a better view. Yeah, that. So my next presentation will be much more to your liking, which is the historic rail or Charcoal Bridge, which I think is, you know, a much more appropriate rail for an historic bridge. We spent a lot of time, as you well know, with the history on the Charcoal Bridge rail, and we're proposing to keep those on our historic structures. This is not a historic structure; it's new. We try to differentiate between the new and the old structures. This is a different standard, by the way, the type 85. And if you recall, the 86H was the original barrier we were talking about for Garrapatta, which was the big bulky thing that was not accepted. They were finally designed, rejected by Monterey County. But that had the high speed, larger, faster speed limits, stronger rail to be able to handle the larger impacts or the heavier impacts that would occur. This is similar to that in its design. It's got the same type of strength characteristics, design profiles, those kinds of things. It's designed to be a stronger rail. We do have, if you notice, it is consistent with other structures that we put rail on. We're proposing a patina metal. We're not doing the shiny galvanized steel that you see in some of those other structures around the state, maybe even a Big Sur prior to when we started doing the patina. And then we're talking about integral concrete color here, so it's not just a gray structure with shiny galvanized steel on it. We're looking at a more appropriate color and a more patina structure. But we will come back. There is output on things, or sorry, input on outreach for things like the design of the structure.
It looks more or less consistent with the other viaduct rails to me, though I can't say, but that is something I know that there are other viaduct rails already in place. And if there's going to be a standard, perhaps that's part of the process is that they stay the same. My question is, how is this going to affect drivers between halfway through 28 and 2030?
One lane control.
One lane control.
Yes. Yes. One lane traffic control. So it will be over, but it'll be one lane traffic.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanna, second Rick's concern about the, aesthetics of it and just remind us that while this, viaduct might not be historic, the whole roadway has special status that includes aesthetics. And judging from the picture, this is not a great success on the aesthetic matters. So I just want to second the thinking through a railing that might be sufficient, but make a more pleasurable drive.
What?
I'd like to second his second.
Second is second? Yeah. Technically a third. I hear you.
Anybody else up here?
I got a list.
Are you a fourth?
I am a fourth and,
Okay.
the historical nature, I really am concerned about the formulation that you're concerned with historic structures. Because the historic corridor is an experience from end to end. And so whenever I hear that we are focusing on the historic nature of a particular part of it, I think of forest and trees. And I recently had the great opportunity, thank you all very much, for being able to drive the corridor end to end. And realize how much the South Coast has suffered from the catch can, fixing things in an emergency and leaving it in a state where there isn't any feel of the historical corridor that you get when you do that full long trip. I'm proposing that here with this forum, one of the things we can do is continue to elevate that. And what you're hearing on the panel is that, you know, you're focusing on the micro. I need to know from my own point of view, we have proposals for the Limekiln Bridge. How is this going to interact with that experience, which is very close to the north? My experience there is informed by what happened at Rocky Creek, where we go 100 years and 50 feet. Now we go from the 32 bridge to the current railing for the emergency style changes in this much space entirely, and we go into the viaduct railing, which matches the new one, but is not even an homage to the history. So at this early stage in the project, I just want to keep saying, and I'm gonna be a broken record on this. What Dan, it's a second to Dan, but even more so, it's the corridor, it's not the structure. And anytime I hear that this structure is historic, but this other part is new, I'm gonna say the same thing. We had, in many of those cases, we had masonry walls, we had things that people put up that were made of wood. So it may be a new structure for its function, but I think we need to come up with a global approach that will allow us to address the historical corridor. So it's a long way of saying yes, second. Another question that I have is this an original jurisdiction project that goes to the Coastal Commission and not to anybody else? Is that correct?
That's yes.
And you are already engaged, I assume, with them?
We have done some coordination, but we have a lot more to do.
Okay, and so for the purposes of input in the room, that would probably be Eric Stevens at the moment would be a good point of contact. You think you see him nodding there?
Yeah.
In his absence, obviously, any of the coastal planners like Croyland and probably can point us in the right direction. So if there are people that are interested in following through, they might, I'm just pushing them that way because they're the people that actually do the work, so. And then I was interested in the story and I really appreciate the story. And through my, about the name, and Quiggle is a perfectly fine name, I have no problem with that. I just want to make sure that Caltrans is aware that there are some discussions of which tribes have which jurisdiction over which parts of Monterey County. And those family disputes can get quite interesting. So just as a heads up, it can be a little complicated to navigate that interaction. So I hate to see people looking at something that feels really good and then have it kind of come out of the blue that there was another point of view. So there, I doubt that there would be in this case, but I raise it for your interest. Dan?
Yeah, two other points. One connected again with the name, and I appreciate the story. My concern is that names invite signs, and as somebody calls it, sign pollution is always a concern on the highway, and that this not be a case that requires a sign with the name, or that it be done in ways that do not interfere with the overall aesthetic experience. And related to that is that I think many people feel concerned that sometimes mitigations from the Coastal Commission and elsewhere lead to more development rather than, say, restoration of natural environments, and that those that one not assume that other developments are an appropriate mitigation from the start and challenges.
I think we've heard you loud and clear on that.
With that,
I think we've heard, sorry, I think we've, to your second point first, I think we've heard that pretty loud and clear. I think Coastal Commission, I don't want to speak for them, but I think, they're here in the same venues. And we just had a meeting with State Parks and John just a couple days ago. Almost yesterday, gosh, I think it was 2 days ago. But we are looking to try to partner more with State Parks in helping them develop and promote some of the projects they already have in their planning process to continue to enhance and make better their experiences on their properties that are already developed. And hoping to maximize the public access benefits and mitigations that we're being asked to make part of our permitting in that way. So we're already going in that direction, just to address that. The name, thank you both for the input. My understanding was done with consultation, but obviously sometimes I understand how the consultation can go. So I will reassure or reaffirm, we're hearing everybody and talking to the folks. Sign pollution, if you notice a lot of the signs now, they're not putting signs up. They're a stamped feature within the concrete, those kinds of things. So I can't imagine that we would be proposing to put a sign up. It would simply be an integrated part of the structure like you would see in other areas. And Martha, did you have a question I didn't answer? I know you said question, but I didn't get to actually respond to you directly.
You told me it was an original jurisdiction project, which was an actual question.
Okay. And I hear, and I appreciate you guys' input. So we obviously have a lot of work to do, and we'll be coming back talking.
All right, we'll go to the members of the public. Sharon.
Yeah, I want to thank the board for bringing up the comment about the guardrails. That's my biggest concern. When I saw that picture, it doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. Big star. One of those things to store to make sure that, I think that is something that I would definitely hope you guys would consider reevaluating significantly. And the second is actually a question. Maybe this is more, maybe it's to you. When is it, whenever it is for public comment, it sounds like that public comment goes to the coastal county. And if that's the case, will we get enough notice to make public comment along with renderings and that kind of thing?
So, yes, the answer to your question is you will have additional public comment. It will be publicized. Typically, the Coastal Commission makes part of our process for the permit to advertise and do public outreach. This is the beginning of that process. It's not a one and done. But we will be reaching out to you. I don't think that it's on here as far as between project approval and right-of-way acquisition, you know, in the mid 26 to end of 27, that 18-month period is when we will be seeking permitting and coming out and talking more about this.
Thank you, that's helpful.
If you can give us something to send out to anybody who might be interested, that'd be great. Sure. Anybody else here in the room? No, is there anybody online who wants to speak? I see Eric's your hands up.
Yeah, thanks Scott for that presentation. I just wanted to say, we're going to take a harder look at jurisdiction. I'm not positive this is going to be Coastal Commission jurisdiction. It might be County of Monterey who does the permit. I was just looking at the maps on this call. There's Forest Service land, it looks like, right nearby here, which would be Coastal Commission jurisdiction. But if it's on the state parks land, it would probably be the county that does the permit. But we'll figure that out this week and let you all know, or work with Caltrans to figure that out.
Thank you.
John? If we're done, I just thought I'd mention in my closing comments, if anyone wants to take a quick picture of the QR code, that will take you to the project website. But also, you know, we want to show a rendering of something to be able to talk about today. And even that rendering, you know, there are ways to alter that. Like sometimes those type barriers can also be made to look like timbers. We've been able to do that before as well. So there is opportunity, and that's why we're bringing things forward in the conversation today. So, you know, does it need to put down the historic barrier like we're going to do on other bridges? We don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no, but we're going to talk about that. But this is another alternative, and even that alternative can be modified aesthetically. So to give it, you know, the look and the feel that others are expressing today.
And again, thank you so much for coming now rather than when it was already gelled. Can't tell you how refreshing and exciting.
Something we talked about.
Yeah.
I just have two comments. One, they're not related necessarily directly to this project, but with the name, I appreciate the name story. And I actually had some residents approach me with the same concept for Shale Point. So, you know, for consistency, I feel if we're gonna start getting into honoring native names? Is it just gonna be this one project, or is it gonna be like all projects moving forward? And, I also appreciate that, considering what jurisdiction, what tribal jurisdiction it is and being sure that that's accurate. That being said, I would like to share maybe with John some of the comments that other people have made to me about moving Shell Point to also honor that same kind of legacy.
We can certainly talk.
Okay, I'll send you that.
Where we got to this was when we first started talking about the project, like Scott mentioned, they were calling it Limekiln Viaduct. We're also talking about Limekiln Bridge, and they're right next to each other, and they're two separate projects. So we put a pause on that, can someone do some research and maybe see how we can make? And so that's what spurred the idea, well, let's see if there's any, cultural significance or heritage in that particular area. So our cultural specialist did do the legwork, but we will definitely go back and bring these comments to them and have them revalidate that. And then we can talk more about Jetmore. Like, I don't know that we have a naming structure protocol to go back, but we can certainly talk about it.
Yeah, well, that actually brings me to the next comment, which is, maybe name can be included in my, just wondering if in the Coast Highway Management Plan update coming up, are there going to be specific like guidelines for the railings and the bridges and all of that? Is that going to be included in the Coast Highway Management update? Because I feel like that comes up every single meeting. And every time we get a presented project, there's always an issue with the railings. So I feel like that should definitely be like nailed down and presented in the management plan. And maybe along with that, also kind of coming to a conclusion about how things are going to get named. If tribes are gonna be considered and all that, that could be another part.
I think we have just the person making notes. I bet you he's writing that down as we speak.
It's very timely. With the kickoff of the Coast Highway Management Plan, we are integrating something called, we're building off of other, documents that have been produced in other, counties in the state, coastal counties. They refer to them anywhere from an emergency guideline to a repair guideline. I think we want to apply it more generally because we don't want to just be emergency and repair situations. We want to be on capital projects too, that are just in a normal process. But they do exactly that. They have literally a table of items that everyone's agreed on. The railing in these situations will look like this. The planting or the colors of concretes or the steel will all look like this. And of course, that's a massive outreach effort because it's a lot of coordination and it's talking about a more holistic, uniform approach to all of this. And Alec will talk more about the update on the Coast Highway Management Plan, but this repair guidelines, we're hoping they come a little bit in advance of the Coast Highway Management Plan. And then, of course, we incorporate it into the Coast Highway Management Plan when that's completed, but hopefully get that sooner to implement sooner. And then, of course, that means more outage, but I want to see a shot.
Martin? Yeah, so I have a dumb question for you. In your timeline, you mentioned the acquisition of right of way, I think it was.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is? I thought you already had right of way.
I'll be honest, I don't know exactly what the specific pieces they are having to get. A lot of times we have to get access easements and other things to do the construction around the structure to build it. I don't think our structure plans to be any larger in final footprint than what we currently have, so it may just be perfecting whatever documentation we have on the existing right away.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, maybe one last one before we move on. Go.
Okay, so the reason I brought up the consistency of the different looks on the viaducts is because what my experience is, having driven the entire coast now, recently, is that there's so much inconsistency, as Martha was saying. It's interesting, thank you for mentioning that there are some documents and more to come, hopefully, that look at it as a whole. One of my questions about that is remediation part of that whole? Because there's a lot that feels just plain messy, beyond need. And I understand that the landscape is constantly changing literally above and below you. But at the same time, there's a quality of like, the work hasn't been finished yet as you drive south, especially, but it's also happening to the north. So remediation, I'm curious if that's part, do you go back and handle things as well?
So that's a good question, and I might ask for a little clarification on it because it becomes more difficult if we're talking about a permanent structure that's already been built. Maybe it's old, it's disjointed, it doesn't look exactly like what's near it or what, elsewhere on the coast. That's more difficult. That's a permanent structure. But maybe what I'm hearing you say is some of the things that are not finished yet, at some of the landslides, maybe temporary K-rail that's been placed there for a long, we call it temporary, but it's been there for a long period of time because we're still waiting for things to stop moving. We're still catching rock and other things. And so, yes, there are opportunities as we go back. We have some of that work is being done under an emergency coastal development permit. And we have a requirement to go back and get a permanent coastal development permit. And during that process, we have conversations about what the final look will be for certain areas and what are we replacing the K-rail with something else? What will that look like? Do we have to have a final catchment system there? So there is some remediation in that respect. But the permanent structures is a little bit more difficult.
Thank you.
I can just add to that, much of what's there, you brought up the K-rail and sometimes the rock fence protection on it. That's still because there's still active slide happening and it's just a necessity so that we can get it and clean out the catchment areas. It's not ideal, it's not pretty, but it's just the reality of being able to keep the road open while dealing with a constantly moving slide adjacent to it.
Anybody else? All right, John wants to move on to the next one.
So I was gonna let Scott just kind of give a brief update. You can stop sharing this if you like now.
We can speak.
I was gonna let, I don't think I'm sharing, but I was gonna let you just kind of give us a little bit of update about the adjacent Lime Kiln Creek Bridge Replacement Project.
So we have talked a little bit to some of our partners, state parks. We just recently, and Coastal Commission, just recently received notification, but as you well know, we went through a pretty extensive environmental process on the Lime Kiln Bridge at Lime Kiln State Park. And unfortunately, through our development of our final design, when we got into design, it was determined that the current alternative that was selected during the environmental process is not feasible at that location. Actually can't physically build what was the preferred alternative. What was the preferred alternative? So we are going through a process now. We're trying to figure out what we can and where we should build the future project, what options are available to us. We are currently exploring options that leave the alignment on the current alignment where the current bridge is, which was, as I understand it, something both state parks and coastal had asked for during the process of communication of the original project. Unfortunately, we are looking at having to probably replace and enhance the revetment that is underneath it, because that is one of the problems with the instability of the current, the constructability over the unstable areas is one of our problems, and why it makes the current preferred or selected alternative unbuildable. So we haven't got any alternatives to show at this point. We are looking at what our options are. We will be coming back and talking. We're going to have to do a supplemental environmental impact report, new EIR. So we will be coming back and talking to folks about what that looks like and how we move forward with it. Unfortunate consequence, but it is one thing. I was talking to John, it's embarrassing to say you make it through a process that takes so long and so collaborative and so many people put such work, a lot of time and effort into it to say we found something that made it unbuildable, but we'd often say we're going to have more details during design, and unfortunately some of the details we get in this case led us down a path that we just cannot build what we approved. So
there's no timeline at this point then?
We don't. We're going through a lot of cost analysis. We're doing some design. We're focusing, quite honestly, our next steps are geotech work. So we will be working with state parks and Coastal Commission on some permitting to try to get in and do some geotech investigations to determine what we can actually build.
Is it a given that there will be a time when you cannot go past, I mean, if we're gonna use the same alignment, or are we gonna?
No, we'll have a temporary bridge. We'll have a temporary bridge in place. Yeah, it'll remain open. There'll be a trestle bridge, I think, to the east side, if I'm not mistaken.
So we do have a plan for keeping the road, the through.
Yes.
Right. Dan?
Yes, I apologize, I don't know the earlier discussions, and it's always bad to come in late.
Me too, it's okay.
A couple of questions, I don't get down that far often, but my sense is the current bridge doesn't look like a lot of other Big Sur bridges. What?
Yeah.
It's the arch? Oh,
Or the current line field's not arched.
Not much.
Yeah.
The railings are the same. The railings are the same.
Railing.
Oh.
I don't have any viz sims to tell you. We drove over it this morning, but,
I mean, it's a span structure with piers that go into the beach itself.
but what does the railing look like? Is it similar, like,
Well, similar.
similar to the older railing?
My sense was it was very different, so
Okay.
and it is, so I guess this is a comment related to this bridge and, as other bridges need replacement, which we've been warned about as a future to expect, that I, not knowing anything about this, again, I assume arches are expensive. And so they would be a non-preferred option. And so are we looking at the steady erosion of the kind of iconic bridges? And I guess, what are the aesthetic considerations that have gone and will go into the development plans for the bridge?
So, there was, my understanding, I was not involved with the original, document preparation, but there was, Sarah, is it Sarah?
Yeah.
You actually have it,
it's not
okay.
mine.
Awesome.
No, I was looking underneath the support structure.
Oh, okay.
So there's coastal access that goes
Underneath, right, to the beach.
And so, that is an important element of trying to make sure that we keep and in fact enhance that coastal access. Except we can.
Right now, I think what you're probably keen in on, I think there was some retrofit to that project, to that bridge. I think it used to have straight columns, now it has kind of a trapezoidal flare, kind of thing for, I believe that might have been a retrofit onto the original structure. As far as aesthetics moving forward, there was a tremendous amount of outreach, as I understand, for the first round. It got us to the current preferred alternative. There'll be the same outreach that occurs for the new one.
I would, just from my experience, say that tremendous amount of outreach kind of glossed over the railing question.
Probably.
So
I mean,
want to just highlight that under.
I shouldn't say it probably from a snide standpoint. I don't think that we're putting, from a Caltrans perspective, we're putting an enhanced amount of effort into talking and interacting about specifically railings. And so, I can imagine that there will be a more focused approach to that specific topic.
I want to just highlight here that the railing question sounds so first world and picky when you talk about it as railings. It's about visual access to the coast. It's not only what it looks like, it's how does it perform for the traveling public. And so I just have to keep saying that so we don't get caught up in what does the railing look like? It's what does it look, how is it to look through? What does it do to your view as you're passing by? What is your experience from that railing? It is hard to convey until we've been having these more in-depth conversations, but it's not just, oh, I don't like that design, I wish it could be pink.
You're setting me up for my next agenda item, so I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
I always do.
So
Where are we at? I think-
more to come, I think, is the bottom line on that.
I'm sorry that there's a reset button and sometimes things happen. I'd rather safe than sorry myself. Rick?
I would just add to Martha's comments, how much the economy of not just this community of Big Sur, but of Monterey County and the entire state of California, hinges on the appeal of the drive down Highway 1. And so it's not because people who live here wish it looked different, then we want to hold on to what we have, but that there's an economic impact as well.
That's a good point.
Big economic impact. Yes.
If I can just add, I absolutely support the comment about visual access to the coast. It's extremely important. There's also another element. I don't know, I just never heard talked about that. A lot of these bridges were built during the WPA program, which was a historical program in developing the United States and recovering our economy from the Great Depression. They were built in an aesthetic that should be carried forward today to honor, I think, that program and that time in our history. And I believe that's an important element as well.
Why it was designated a historic corridor way back when. Yeah, all right, anybody here, Don?
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge the collaboration with State Parks and Caltrans on this project and really appreciate that collaboration. A big part of this project that's really critical for State Parks is the coastal access and improvements within Limekiln. And look forward to that collaboration for the new design that we'll embark on.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. All right, let me go to the members of the public who may be here in the room. Anybody? Not seeing anybody leaping to the floor. Is anybody online? I don't see any hands. Katie, am I missing anyone?
I don't see any hands right now.
All right, that being the case, I'm gonna come back here and move on to the next item, which is either Scott or John. I don't know who.
I think got most of your show today. I think.
Could you like add some more interpretive dance, Scott?
So as he's
You'd
loading,
be
as
surprised.
introduction, we in the past have brought, forward items of discussion about bridge rails. And so, we appreciate the favorable responses that we've gotten. We've had some focused conversations, we've had some larger conversations, both here and Bismack, which interesting now is we're both here in this exact same room, so that's great. So what we wanted to do is just continue the dialogue and bring you an update, because maybe you've seen that there's been an environmental document that had been recently on the streets for a notice preparation, part of that work, so we wanted to very appropriately and very timely come back and give you an update, as we will continue to do so. Bridge rails and handing over to Scott.
So I think, is the agenda item just the Garrapatta Bridge Rail or is it also rock? I can.
It's Rocky.
It's all
Great. So I'll start with Rocky. It's just verbal. You may have noticed there was a notice of preparation that was published. The comment period just closed at the end of last week, or I think it was Sunday, so technically goes to Monday. It just closed. All it was doing was trying to, and we talked about this, I think, in the fall here. We are proceeding with a bridge rail replacement project at Rocky Creek as well. We're following the same footsteps as Garrapatta. Second part of Garrapatta, the current version of Garrapatta. We're now starting back at the 86H. So we're taking the lessons learned at Garrapatta and trying to apply that to the other structures that we were talking about. Specifically, I think there were 6 total in our programmatic EIR. So we're doing a construction level EIR for Rocky Creek. We're proposing the same essential style, the 511H. And the reason I say essential, Martha, I've heard you and others about the consistency. So the 511H will continue as a consistent proposal for all of those. But what we do see architecturally on each one of those bridges is there's a very slight difference in the rail itself. There might be a slight, like a point or an arch or something, but so each one will be tailored to try to pay tribute to that specific location. But the rail type itself, the 511H, will be consistent. So how tall it is, how wide it is, the windows, those kinds of things will stay consistent. It's just we will try to tailor them to meet the specific architectural details that were on the original structure, speaking to that original design. So that's closed now. We hope to have a draft environmental document out on the streets fall of this year. So I think it's October of 2026 is when you'll see an actual circulation of the draft environment. So the NOP was just essentially a process to say, hey, we're doing a project. So don't feel like you missed out on anything. It literally just says, hey, we're doing a project. The actual draft circulation will happen later this year. Sorry. Now, the fun stuff. We were able to preview this with the Bridge Rail Subcommittee of the Byways a little bit ago. And gosh, it seems like it's been a month or two now. Well, one of the things we heard from the team, or the group, I'm sorry, for Garrapatta was, great, we see your visual simulation, but what is it like to drive through it? You know, what is the driving experience? And a lot of what Martha was just saying about the visual experience that happens when you go over the bridge. And so, one of the tasks we took, one of the action items we took after that, gosh, I think mid-year last year, was to then come back with a visual simulation of the drive-through experience. And so this is a 30-second video. It's going to take you through, sorry about the choppiness. It's going to take you through from south to north, and then it's going to take you the opposite direction, north to south, of the proposed new 511H rail. And then we get a flyover of the same perspectives. I'll play this again.
I would just want to continue to raise to the team that it's not just the ocean views that are important, both ways.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure when you're thinking about both sides of the road in all of these bridges.
Sure. Yeah, I do see we are cocking the head of the driver towards the ocean each time.
I think it's a fair thing, but just to keep in mind in the design process.
So I just wanted to come back. It was something we wanted to share with everyone. If we continue to get positive feedback on the 511H, I think we took a lot of what we heard through the discussion on the 86H rail. We have successfully, I think, achieved through some of our own work, some of the work with the group, what I think is turning out to be a fairly successful compromise. It's not everything that everybody wants. It's a modern version of a historic rail that meets the safety standards we need to meet. But I think it also there are a lot of significant changes to this particular design that has brought it to the scale that's appropriate to, at least what we've heard as appropriate to the structure and what we think is appropriate for other structures. Are there any questions?
Not up here, anybody in the room? Rachel?
So I just want to clarify that this design is going to be potentially replicated across all major historic bridges across Big Sur corridor, Highway 1. So that then effectively means anywhere that there's a speed limit of 55 miles an hour, that's going to be reduced to 45 miles an hour to accommodate the bridge rail.
Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, where we have bridge rails are 45 or will be 45. I don't know that we are maintaining any 45 bill. I think there were only two, I think there were only two locations really that hasn't changed. I think it was Bixby and Garrapatta.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, and both of those, after collecting speed data and reflecting what was actually happening out there, both of those will be adjusted to reflect reality, which is that.
I'm gonna keep the volume up.
Yeah.
Sorry, after analyzing traffic, speed data, we, evaluated both Garrapatta and Bixby, and both were found to, meet the 45-mile-an-hour speed limit criteria. And so, I think the other four bridges all were already at 45. And to speak to the sign clutter, comment, one of the side benefits of that, we haven't talked about a whole lot, is there's a lot of advisory 45-mile-an-hour speed limit curve signs. Those all get to come out because we have a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit now. So you will see once we start moving through this process, we will be able to take down some of those advisory speed limits because they're no longer necessary. So to speak to the sign clutter argument, it's a side benefit.
Yeah, it's kind of a sign reduction in addition to speed limit reduction.
Yeah.
Because of the lower speed limit, which is going to extend quite a period. And it's given the opportunity to have other bridge rails like the one that we're going to be using on the bridges now. And then, and I just, since we're talking about it, I believe that those speed limit signs are on order and we're just waiting for them to arrive and then be able to install. So
I was gonna discuss that in my comments because I've had some residents comment on those feet. Yeah, Heather?
Well, yeah, myself as well, residents commenting on the speed. Is there like set distance around a bridge that has a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit? Is that set in law somewhere or
So
design?
So Speed limits are set based on an engineering and traffic speed zone survey. So we do a survey where we see what the actual speeds drivers are going. Because we have to have that survey in place to make the enforcement actions stay in court. So our officers, deputies and rangers, they can't write a speeding ticket unless that speed zone survey is accurate and up to date. So that's what we've done. And what we found is that prevailing speeds could be set at 45 miles per hour. So I was looking at my notes from my past comments about what that distance is, but it is a long stretch that is, that are now the speeds are going from 55 to 45. If in the course of the meeting I can find the exact limits, or I'll maybe reach someone and give me the exact plus miles, I will, but that's the idea behind speed zone surveys, to make them legally enforceable. Well,
And the only other thing I was gonna say is it wasn't the bridge dictating the speed. You know, that, so it wasn't like, hey, we chose this bridge and we're setting a buffer around it for speed limit. It really was the speed throughout the corridor that dictated what the corridor speed would be. And then we're able to appropriately design elements for the bridge associated.
Steve?
Yes, I have a question regarding the engineering traffic survey. As it stands now, unless you're local, it's super confusing what the actual speed limit is between Carmel Islands and the Little Sur area. Did you guys conduct that engineering traffic survey at the same time as the speed limits at Rocky and Terracotta Creek Bridges, the temporary speed limits?
No, we have to examine free flow in normal conditions.
So before those.
Not in the rain, not on a special event weekend, not when there's construction. It has to be a fair and accurate survey, so.
So you're telling me it was done before, because those speed limits have been in place now for some time.
No,
At the bridges.
I'm talking, well, the current speed zone survey that's currently making changes from, I found a note from north of Rocky Creek to Garapata. That was the survey area, and that's what's going from 55 down to 45.
Right, but I'd like to know when that was conducted specifically.
I can see if I can get that information, but it's been conducted since Rocky Creek has been opened back to 2 lanes again. So since
No temporary speed limits were in place.
Correct.
And the signage was present, because as it is now, there's the 55 at Mount Paso, and the next one's halfway down the hill between Hurricane Point and Little Sur.
So we don't have those 45 speed, we don't have those signs in stock yet to be able to do the replace, to actually go out and do the replacement, to make it consistent all the way through. So that would, that's one of the good outcomes as well. It's gonna be consistent all the way through, which helps the enforcement part of it.
Right, it just seems like you guys maybe sand that there a little bit. You created the 45s, and then you did the traffic survey and got the results that you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, the reality, the cases, we do look for free flow conditions. We don't do it around construction zones. We don't do it with artificial speed reductions, because that would not make the speed zone survey valid. And that's a real concern to us, so that we work hard to make sure that it doesn't upset. And we work with CHP along the way to make sure that we're good.
Can I access that survey as a matter of public?
I believe so. I think surveys like that can be requested through a public records act.
CPRA, okay, thank you.
And they've been very quick and helpful with those requests when you file them.
Yeah, my experience is really good with the
So it's
CPRA.
been really easy to get what they have. They don't always offer all of the information. It's hard to get raw information, but yeah. So just a question for you, Steve, is it because you're concerned that the 45 is a bad thing, or you?
It seems to me that we're putting form over function with these bridge railings. I don't see a reason to let aesthetics dictate the speed on the highway. We're not just talking about the bridges. I think we're talking about 45 basically from Garapata down past Bixby. It's a large stretch of road. And 45, especially at the Notley landing area, is kind of ridiculous. That's 55, that's a long straightaway. I don't see any reason to do, to support that action, but that's just.
I just wanted to clarify.
For sure, yeah.
Thank you.
Just along those lines, you mentioned that long stretch where going from 55 to 45 is kind of ridiculous. I have to agree. But I'm wondering, would it make sense just to slow down as you approach the bridge? Just reduce the speed limit as you approach the bridge? I don't know if that's possible or makes sense.
So, I mean, I'm not prepared with the full, background refresh in mind about the survey, the areas, the reasons. There are long stretches that remain 55. So maybe we can, table this for an agenda item. I'm happy to bring even our engineers who did the survey, ask their questions to the public.
Talk about speed.
Talk about speeds in general, but I guess I'll leave it with that the bridge rails did not drive the speed reduction. We have to do those studies on intervals to keep them legal and valid, and it was time to do that speed zone survey, and that's what the results were. So that's why we moved forward, and that's why we consulted and collaborated with our enforcement partners along the way. And then that's where we found ourselves with being able to move that. But I'm just fortunately don't have all the details clear in mind because it wasn't on for me to think about today. But we do have that information available that we can bring, to a future meeting and talk about it and I think we can be very clear about what those are. I do remember there are straightaways that are staying 55, so I'm afraid if I keep going, I'm gonna maybe misrepresent what was in that. So.
Yeah, and there's curves like coming down off Hurricane Point to the south that are 55, where it's 45 going up fast and straight. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
But I would ask, maybe Katie would write it down for our next meeting. Let's have an item about how speed setting works. Because from my own research, I learned that there's a good deal of state legislation that limits how they are set and who sets them and for what purpose. And so that we gotta work within the laws as well. One of the big laws had to do with not setting up speed traps, so that's how often they can change and for what reasons. And so anyway, it's a complicated subject in several layers, so we're probably worthy of a further discussion. All right? Okay. Yes.
Yeah, it just felt like an appropriate time just to raise what Bruce Merchant had said in his public comment, where he was wondering if there could be some warning signs at Citrones, or like speed reduction signs. I wasn't sure if there had been a survey done there, because I know that's another kind of like problem area. So I just wanted to raise his comment since we were talking about the signs and the speed.
John, you want to take down that information? I'm not familiar with it, maybe Kathy Kleinschmidt. Kathy Kleinschmidt is our traffic engineer that was in charge of SB setting. I would try to opine on traffic studies, but she is quick to correct me and I never get it right. So, and I'm not an engineer and I won't pretend to be. So she would be the great person to have here to answer those questions.
If we get the speed zone survey on the next agenda, then the individual Catherine Kleinschmidt, who is our senior traffic engineer that charge of safety systems, be happy to have a full discussion, including solar.
And Martha, you're absolutely right. It's a very highly regulated thing.
And here we also have the prohibition against any signs that we don't have to have, so it becomes even more complicated.
Yeah, just we've done the car driving the force. There is I'm pretty sure a people walking on the road sign that Chevron is at least going south, and that we should be attentive to fair warnings, but also to parking that drives people to walk on or in the roadway. And think about organizing parking that puts people on the road as well as signs that warn people that they're walking on the road.
Backing out into the road or whatever. Okay, where are we at? Has everyone who wants to say something had a chance to do so? How about that for a non-official request?
We have someone online.
We have someone online. Go.
Hi, this is Bruce Merchant once again, and not to hit the nail on the head too many times, but you're saying that my understanding is you have ordered 45-mile-an-hour speed limit signs because you didn't have enough in stock. Can you tell us what areas those signs are going to be in? And of course, my question is, what is with Soberanis? Is it going to be reduced to 45 miles an hour? And if so, how long is that area, that speed limit range going to be?
And again, Bruce, I don't know if you were on, but we just decided that as it is extremely complicated and no one here was prepared to speak about it correctly with information on hand, we're gonna put a whole item on that on the next agenda, and in the meantime.
I did hear that, but if I got the impression that they had already decided that there were some areas that were going to be reduced to 45 miles an hour based on previous studies. I understand we need to know more about how the study's done, but I'm just asking what areas? What areas are going
And
to
what
be
I'm,
reduced?
what I'm saying is that no one here came prepared with an accurate answer to that question, so it would probably be a good idea for them to not answer in case they said the wrong thing.
Okay,
So
all
we
right.
don't have an answer for you here. I suspect if you were to email either John or Scott, they'd probably direct you to somebody who could get you that answer correctly. But nobody wants to say it and have it be wrong.
All right,
Is that-
understood. Thank you. That clarifies it. Thank you.
It's a defined location. It's just in the moment, I'm struggling to search for previous notes, so best not to give it back inaccurate information today.
All right, that's fine. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? No? All right. That, I'm gonna go ahead and close that item out and bring it to the Coast Highway Management Plan, which I think is yet another person.
So happy to bring to the public here today, Alec Kimmel. Alec is with us in our Transportation Planning Division, and Alec is our Coast Highway Plan update. I'm saying this wrong. Big Sur Coast Highway Management Plan. He's leading the update, so he's the project manager for that effort. And Alec is going to lead us through a conversation of where we are, why we're doing this plan, and talk about the engagement and outreach that we really need to begin with the community.
And I'm gonna start by saying I'm gonna leave about half an hour for this at the most, so we have time to finish up our agenda. So if I cut it off, it's because I wanna save time for the rest of the agenda. So Alex, go for it.
Yeah, Katie, have you made me a
Are you,
panelist yet?
yeah, are you S139?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Go ahead.
Okay, just sent you a promotion.
So, thank you everyone for the opportunity. Go ahead and move to the front here. To meet you all and to get this effort officially kicked off. A little bit about me before I get into the effort of the plan. Really quickly, I came to Caltrans District 5 fairly recently. I was spent the last several years in Caltrans District 6 in the Central Valley, where I was a system planning branch chief. If any of you know Vanessa Fall, I was her counterpart in that district. I had a few acting assignments with the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, and most recently, and perhaps experientially relevant to this effort, I was a contract manager for a 3-district historic corridor plan for State Route 99 through the Central Valley. So for this effort, we are, as John mentioned, looking at starting the outreach, looking at starting to pull together the different teams and looking at what the structures for those might be. We're still at the very early stages, so this is perhaps an oversimplified diagram, so to speak, but we do know that we would like this body, the Big Sur Byways organization, to be the main conduit for updates. Now, does that necessarily mean that we would only be providing updates at the Byways meetings? No, we were hoping that we would be able to have, as an extension perhaps of this group steering committee, with many of yourselves included in that. We definitely want to continue the tradition of this being a stakeholder driven process and be driven by the community, and we welcome all of your contributions we have in the past. So one quick history on background. I believe District Deputy Brandy Ryder spoke to this a little bit at the November meeting, but just to reiterate, Highway 1 through Big Sur has the designation of an all-American road under the Byways program administered by Federal Highways. This is a voluntary program that looks at the preserving and promoting routes that are seen as outstanding in some respect, and also helping communities balance economic development and resource conservation. The All-American Road designation within that Byways designation is a special designation. Only 37 of the 184 184 byways of those, only 37, including Route 1 through Big Sur, is considered an all-American road. And the requirement for that is the road has to be considered a destination and a reason for travel unto itself. It has to demonstrate strong community support for the designation. And last, but certainly not least, there needs to be a corridor management plan describing in detail preservation and improvement strategies for the byway. So that was one factor that contributed to the creation of the original Coast Highway Management Plan. At the time, there was already an existing, as part of the local coastal program, land use plan, looking at how to balance development with some of the preservation work as far as or needs to preserve the unique qualities of the corridor. The land use plan, as I understand it, is currently having an update of its own. We're hopefully looking, Katie, to see a draft go out sometime in summer for that.
Maybe. I'm working on that.
And Martha. And those two plans ultimately, I believe, have a relationship and speak with each other. The management plan is required by Federal Highways. But another factor, of course, was the experience of driving the road itself, given some of the challenges that are presented by the impacts to the geology and to the climate. In particular, the 1998 El Nino year, we saw over 50 locations needing a response to the damage that was caused by the storm in that year. And so there was a stakeholder-based planning process that was agreed to develop that plan. A 16-member steering committee with a balanced approach to multiple functions and values, flexibility to respond to changing circumstances, also complementing those other plans and efforts is something that we're very interested in, seeing consistency with local plans, especially given that this document is now published in 2004, along with guidelines for vegetation, signage, design guidelines, and safety improvements that you've heard already. It's now over 20 years old. And so it's timely to begin an update effort, not just to look at consistency with those other plans, but also to include potential new elements, including those that might address priorities at the state level, but also priorities that you might have. I had the opportunity to meet with some of you earlier, I think last month, for the first time, and definitely heard from that we would like to see a stronger communication piece included in the plan. We would like to see maybe areas where the plan looks at how the change in technology may have impacted how we address management of the route. So we've now this current effort, the prior effort was funded through the Byways program. This current effort is being sponsored through a Protect grant, which is another federal program. And this is a tentative timeline. I say tentative because we're looking at maybe the update effort lasting about 3 years. It could go longer. Essentially where we are right now is looking at the elements and, as John mentioned, beginning work on the outreach. From now until probably late fall this year, we'd be looking at finalizing goals and objectives and doing some visioning work. We're really interested to hear from all of you what the new update, what the plan would need to look like going into the future, and what the goals and objectives should be. We know that there's certain things, we already kind of have a sense of certain things that we want to see that weren't part of the plan before that are hopefully going to be now, but to be able to see what this plan can do as far as helping with alignment. How am I doing on time, by the way?
You got your 8 minutes.
I'll move along. So these are just some examples of past vision statements. In the interest of time, I won't go over this in too much detail, but just noting that there are some keywords that continue to be prevalent both in the land use plan and in the 2004 document. So for the new vision, and we'll be happy to share these slides afterwards. Some of the questions that we just like to pose to you all, what aspects of the management plan worked well? What were some drawbacks, some limitations? How could they be improved in the update? And what would you hope this updated Coast Highway Management Plan might accomplish? Just quickly finalizing with next steps, we have a couple of charters that we'll be working on for the steering committee that we intend to be sort of an offshoot of this body, as well as internal working groups, both at Caltrans and externally in partnership. And then really what we were hoping to roll out today as far as engagement is concerned is we have a survey and on a public facing website for the CHMP effort. If you'll give me a moment, I can actually pull up the website that we were able to put together. It just went live today. And it asks some of the same questions, phrased in, a different way, perhaps. Just gathering input on what is important to you about living here and being part of this community and interacting, your experience of the route of the roadway, as well as what you would like to see potentially in the plan as we develop it. And so I'll go ahead and wrap up there and open to any questions.
I'm gonna start by asking, is there a place that you can link to here for people who haven't read the existing plan yet? We can send them to the website for the Byways, which has the Coast Highway Management Plan and the land use plan posted on it, along with some other legislation. But it's not something that everybody has, and it wasn't for a long time available on the Caltrans website for reasons we don't need to go into. Just so make sure that we have a way for people to see what the existing plan is.
Alec brought up our project portal, and we'll get that link sent out afterwards. It's still in some form of development. We're trying to get it to go live, but it's the tool we're going to use to collect information for comments, for providing documents, just as you're suggesting. We do have some challenges as it relates to some of the older documents, being able to make them ADA accessible. So we're still working on that. But it's the way that we'll be interacting our online presence for the effort. So yeah, we do want our document, we do want these documents as a resource to be accessible to everyone as well. In addition to other documents that exist that the county has had to host for us, short of being able to host them ourselves. So this is a draft version of it. There's some things we're still making some edits on, but it's a system called public input, but it's going to be available on the Caltrans website. And it'll be the place that you might get an email and you'll say, you'll be getting the email from public input. And so that will be the notice. So As we continue, as Alex said, use the byways as a forum to be able to bring forward information, set up smaller groups for, for collaboration. We'll be having some of our own focus meetings, and one idea was maybe we schedule them after a byways meetings for those who are being invited. We're here already. We've made a trip up already, so these are the things that we're still putting together for the plan going forward over the course of the years ahead.
Great. Questions from the panelists, comments, thoughts? I'm just gonna weigh in and say this is a welcome development. I think going in, setting the scene is really important. So from my point of view, it is critical that everyone give a lot of thought to the actual role of the actual Coast Highway Management Plan in the actual world. The land use plan is law. The CHMP says right in the beginning, this is not a regulatory document. So we need to explore and understand the relationship between the various things that we're doing and what they apply to and to whom and when we would use them and when we wouldn't. And it's not, I mean, I've been involved for a while and I know it's not easy. So helping to clarify those roles and expectations for what the document can do would seem to me to be really a good way to start at the beginning. And it's also a good way to clarify if we all have the same expectations, because when we do that, we can actually better understand whether we're on the same page or not. So, and I also just want to do my pitch, which is, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first All-American Road. This is the number one. And so it's just kind of point of pride, That's a, you gotta forgive me a little booster in here. That's why it's called Highway 1. There you go. Okay. And to some extent, kind of one of the reasons we have the program, because it was a good example of why you need it. All right, anybody else? Mark?
Yeah, too early comment, too early input. But I just want to say, in this process, to me, safety is something you have to really think about every step of the way. There are too many points along Highway 1 in the scenic corridor where people are walking right next to the road, practically on it, sometimes even walk out into it. And I think that safety has got to be consideration as we go through this process. I'm just going to,
Nobody else up here? Anybody in the room want to talk?
The safety concern seems to be a primary driver with you folks, and I would just like to offer an opposition to that. As a consenting adult, I should be allowed to walk on the side of the road, but if Point Lobos is running or anywhere along the way, the pull-outs were designed for lateral access. I think it's the right of the public to step out of their vehicle, cross the street, take, reasonable risks at their own behest. And so I would just like to maybe caution you all a little bit with that. It seems like that's kind of a little bit of a runaway attack vector.
I'd like to respond to that by saying these pullouts were not designed. Pullouts occurred. And so nobody's ever done any safety, any analysis of a majority of the places people park in this highway at all ever. It's been an opportunistic, based in many cases on maintenance activities that have caused a slight widening in the road that have then caused greater widening in the road and people park there. So it is a little different from somebody designing some place to park that was a decent place to do, and people just parking someplace where it's intrinsically unsafe. And that has been an ongoing tension that we need to address, and especially as it continues to increase with the increased visitation. So I understand what you're saying, and I also understand that when you create an attraction, you also accrue a responsibility to try to keep the people you attract safe. That's one of the jobs of a host, is not to bring people to attract them into danger without taking some precautions. So I think there's a balance to be had there. Mark?
Yeah, I just add to that, gentleman used the term reasonable risk, and I'm all in favor of that. We're all adults. We should be allowed to choose what's good or bad for us to take reasonable risk. some people don't take reasonable risk. And that's the issue. That's what really it comes down to is how do you protect against people? You know, there's gonna be the ones that don't take reasonable risk. It's unreasonable risk. And you have to, along your comments, you do have to take that into consideration.
Yes, additional comments, anyone?
If I may.
Of course not.
I just wanted to, second your original comment, regarding noting what the CHMP and the respective, other documents that it may be referencing or coordinated with, can and can't do in the respective roles. I agree wholeheartedly. We've actually had conversations internally about that very same thing. So to Scott Smith's point about the guidelines for maintenance being, something that might come out early, but then gets incorporated, and how to sort of have all these different pieces work together in a coherent manner. Just wanted to second that.
Government is super complicated because regulatory compliance with the federal government is important. And laws that have been passed by the state are also important. And you get confused, it gets confusing sometimes about what you do if the two aren't obviously in agreement. And my own personal feeling about the Coast Highway Management Plan is it exists to help Caltrans do its job under the constrictions of the land use plan, one of its primary considerations in the land use plan, one of the things that made that compromise work was that everybody, including all agencies, agreed to be bound by the same rules. Because that was when we were gonna get through with this incredible restriction on the ability to develop private property and public property, so that we would not be able, in some cases, to fulfill the goals that would be in existence without that specificity. So the Coast Highway Management Plan was kind of a roadmap for what to expect from Caltrans when they had to deal with this set of constraints. And one of the big drivers was what do we do with spoil from landslide? And because of the fact that it's not a regulatory document, and because then Congressman Barr and Assemblymember Fred Keeley decided it needed more teeth, they went and passed a state law saying that the aesthetics guideline in the Coast Highway Management Plan for ours in particular, although it's not called that by name, it's called that by definition, now is part of the law. You gotta follow that. Except when there's some other considerations of safety. So we're just in this kind of government complication that I think most people don't recognize. And it is a constraint in and of itself. And if we're gonna go into the process of trying to make a better, more useful document for today, it seems just critical to me to address the places where those run together right off the bat. And find them, locate them, see what we're gonna say, make the decision rather than leaving it unsaid and unspecified. Because a lot of times what we get through the compromise is by not specifying the outcome. And we're seeing that now. So anyway.
I'll just add to finish that, having plan consistency is part of the driver of what we're trying to do with it, because the CHMP from 2004 has all served us very well. We've been able to do and exist and do a lot of great things because of it. But the world around us has also changed. Things have become more amplified, such as climate change and the needed responses to that, and certainly tourism on a trajectory that keeps growing. So those are all things that's led us to where we are today. But the importance of everyone's input is going to be really important, because it gets back to that plan consistency. There's things in the land use plan that are in contradiction to maybe with the CHP or certainly some of the Caltrans things. Not every element of the land use plan is implementable. So this is where we're trying to thread and find that balance. But that balance has to come with everyone involved in the discussion to have. That's why the signatories are important.
Anybody in the room have more to say? Anybody online have more to say? Is there a hand up? I can't tell.
I don't see any hands up.
Okay. Alec, can you get more to say?
No, thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
We're gonna, I think John and I are suggesting a regular item to talk about, at least an update where we are with the CHMP at all of our quarterly meetings as a start. Is that amenable for your planning?
Absolutely.
And we hope more. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
the beginning place.
I don't think you have a choice.
Hey, I like the people like, maybe he doesn't like, I don't know. All right, that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and close that item out with thanks. It is, in my mind, the most important thing we could be engaged in, so I'm excited. And I'm gonna move on to member comments, requests and referrals. And I think we have saved 20 minutes here to do that in, so everybody be mindful of that. This is gonna just go down the table. So let's start for a change with Rick, because we never start with Rick. Oh, I know. Member comments, referrals, things you want to see on the agenda or whatever.
A comment today, just want to once again, express appreciation to Caltrans. It was a long haul, to get Highway 1 open, and, much appreciation for this stick-to-itiveness displayed and innovations employed. And that just the result of that is a noticeable improvement in the business climate.
I have a couple of things from Big Sur residents who wanted me to pass them along. There are surveyors at or near the top of Sycamore Canyon Road going to Pfeiffer Beach in the last few days. And there's just a question, what are they up to? There's Caltrans trucks there, there's survey equipment. Is there any chance that that will have something to do with making that turn down that steep descent, a safer turn? This is just a question. And then we really covered so much, and we will cover it in the next meeting about the speed limits. There's a lot of concern from some people that I hear in the community and from people who called me for this meeting about the difficulty of a local person trying to get to work or a worker trying to get to work on the highway at 45 miles per hour when it's not necessarily a needed or dangerous section of a road. So keeping sections at 55 where they can be kept, at 55 for both safety and bridge areas and all those things. And that those areas of 45 miles per hour, in some cases, people are finding it overlap with areas where one could pass because there's a passing lane. I think this is going just south of Bixby, perhaps, is what they're speaking about. And they're concerned that at 45 miles an hour, you simply can't pass another car. So trying to also explore if there's a way to keep those passing areas at 55 so that passing could happen. And I will let them know that this is going to be the topic for the next meeting and they should come. And one other one is the camping, roadside camping signage, which I believe is very, very sparse. I think I can identify one somewhere along the county line to the south and one sort of hidden in a turnout near Rocky Point Restaurant. Perhaps there are more, and I certainly apologize, there may be more that I don't notice, but it seems that if we have lots of people coming and campgrounds full and there continues to be roadside camping, especially through warmer months of the year, perhaps, and I know it's signage, and I know we don't like signage, but perhaps we need to give people more than one chance to know that roadside camping is not allowed. Those were three comments.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Again, great to be here and look forward to a good year of meetings with everyone. We'll work to bring the speed zone and the speed limit changes to a future meeting. Generally speaking, I found some notes from a presentation we did previously that said the area of change is essentially just south of Coast Road to just north of Rocky Creek. So about a 5 mile segment where a change would be impacted, but again, we'll bring this forward and be able to display it a little more clearly. Signage is always a concern. The no camping sign came from a Monterey County ordinance for no camping. So those signs are put up. We work with the county under permit to put those up. So, there's always that balance of, how many signs, sign clutter, visual impact and so on. But definitely understood, and the challenges that, not having prolific signs may present to those who maybe would like to say or claim that they never saw them. And then, again, Poseidon Management Plan, we'll be here. We'll be setting up additional meetings as needed with different groups, setting up maybe more steering committee or focus type groups. And we'll get the link through Katie to the website and we get that set up. There's a place on there, like it's similar to like a constant contact where if you'd like to sign up for information, if we don't happen to have your information. And if everyone doesn't mind, we'll probably get some of our distribution lists we use for this meeting for invites and just front load that into that email list database so that we make sure we cover everyone. In addition to asking our staff that helps us with the counting at this meeting to present that as well. And, it's just our desire to always use this forum as well to bring forward projects like Lime Kiln, like Google and others. And things come up for us constantly as the coast itself is changing. The most recent project that you all are noticing is around Point Sur, where there's 1 lane traffic control. That is a slip out that's formed. The slip out is continuing to grow in some respects, so we're continuing to try to refine our approach to that. So more information to come on timing and duration, but it is our desire, of course, to keep the road open at 1 lane unit. So the 1 lane traffic control is a strategy that you've seen now all throughout the coast, and I will continue to as we do going forward. So just a couple of thoughts that I want to share for the sake of time, and happy to pass on.
And you also generally keep up a list of projects someplace that people can get as well.
So, and actually that probably goes to the question about the surveyors. I think we saw them when we were driving up. I don't specifically know what job they're working on, but provided in the packet is usually a list of Caltrans projects on the Big Sur coast and the dates associated with that. So somewhere within that list is probably related to the work they're saying.
Okay, chime in. We can also make sure that the list is sent out so that everyone has access to that.
That's good.
Great, thank you.
We can let people know because we'll have a reference on it.
And we I make sure that's updated for this meeting and before everybody goes back. So it's the same list as it.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna do my report as the resident representative at large. The first thing I get is, what the heck is the speed limit? People saying that they don't know how fast they're supposed to be going, and they are told that the 45-mile-an-hour limit is over before they knew there was one, and anyway, so there's a lot of confusion about what people are supposed to be doing at this time. I would just raise for practicality. Piggybacking on all the other discussions about speed. I had a particular complaint actually yesterday about the fact that it's 45 up. When you're going south, it's 45 up to right before Hurricane Point, and then it's 55 from Hurricane Point down through the backward bank curves. Somebody said that doesn't make no sense to me. So stuff like that is now coming to people's minds because they're looking at the signs and neither they nor their car, which now knows these things, knows how fast they're supposed to be going. I did have a community discussion earlier about the Notley's Landing, Colorado intersection. We had some local residents that had an accident because somebody didn't see that they were planning on pulling left there, and they went full to pull around them when they slowed, and they had an accident which didn't hurt anybody, but was in fact extremely unsettling. And then there was a big outcry about how this is a thing that happens. Kind of folded back into the school bus discussion that we've heard at Bismack, where the school bus stops there, people pull out around the school bus. So I'd like to just ask Caltrans if we can get somebody to take a look at that intersection and then see if there's anything safety wise that could be proposed to make that
that turn safer. Because there are, I think, upwards of 500 residents up in there, even if nothing else is going on in terms of the public going to the campground. I have another neighbor who is on about the safety of the turn into what is in fact my driveway and her driveway immediately north of Garapata Bridge. The inland turn there is also turning, or has been for a while, a parking spot. And that means that if someone parks immediately south of the bridge in their larger vehicle, there's no way to see if there's somebody coming, if somebody wishes to come out and turn left. There's not just us with the two driveways there, that's also turned into a major U-turn position. So that's where people come down, they go to Garapata and they make a U-turn to go back up north. And I have myself really several times had trouble seeing somebody who I thought was turning into the highway and in fact was doing a U-turn. So I'd like to also just ask if Caltrans has the ability to have somebody take a look at safety right and at the end of the bridge where there are driveways both sides of the street and we have the parking for the park and we have this new traffic movement that's just continuing to grow. So question for safety experts, if there's anything we can do to help with that. That builds my larger question, which is, we still need to progress with the Bixby Emergency Task Force. So anybody here, anybody online, anybody has the ability to get that process moving. We still have not solved the problem at Bixby or Soberanes or Julia Pfeiffer Burns, although it's better, or any of the places that we, Point Lobos for that matter, we want to talk about potentials for improving things. Bixby was chosen, for those of you who might not have heard this broken record before, because it's on private property. It's not off, it's an attraction that has grown, as we all know, immeasurably, all of which occurs on areas which are surrounded by private property rather than parks or the national forest or anybody else who has a regulatory role at all. So these are independently local landowners who are faced with this situation and no way to do anything about it. So I have a lot of people asking, what are we doing with that? And I'd like to help us get together and put some humps behind that any way that we can. And somebody called me yesterday that's saying that the Pointer light is too long. Just passing that along because I did hear it. It's too long. It's stopped for too long. 12 cars behind me and nothing happened for 5 minutes. So I set it at the meeting. Okay? Personal note, we can all, well, there's not very many of us here, but we can all help each other get the word out about the Coast Highway Management Plan and the other important things we've been talking about. We try to carry forward into this meeting things that come up at the BSMAC that need further discussion. And so we don't always capture all of those at the meeting, and if we depend on John and me to remind Katie what should be on the agenda, we don't always catch anything. So I'm going to invite all of you who have been involved, please drop me a note, drop John a note. If you've got something that you think needs some time at one of these meetings, we'll see if we can't do something about that. But we need help, right? Right?
I'm gonna rapid fire for everyone's benefit, hit a couple of your quick thoughts.
Okay.
The first one is, as much as I would love to personally answer and help some of these project location specific inquiries like the driveway, I can't keep track of them all. So what we have is a customer service request website. It's csr@dot.ca.gov. Katie can share it. If your friends, neighbors, and relatives happen to ask questions about that, dropping that in is the quickest way to get it resolved, actually. It actually is better for me because it takes me out of the loop, because then I'm not trying to go back and make sure I captured all my posts.
Make sure we all get that.
And what that does is that creates a tracking for us as well and a responsibility to make sure that we're responding. So that's that one. And as far as Bixby, just want to let everyone know that there have been ongoing conversations continuing with Bixby led by Supervisor Daniels. And so I think part of that is Bixby Task Force amongst other conversations with other officials, stakeholders. And then, what's my third point? Oh, the signal. We did reduce the wait time at the signal already. So we did adjust that. It's set because the stretch is so long that we have to allow a time for a bicyclist. If there was one, to be able to make their way through. So that they're not then met with an oncoming car in the other direction. So we have adjusted that signal. So please share that back. Friends, neighbors, and that. Thank you.
Would be nice to tell somebody who calls you up that we did something about it. I didn't know it'd be friends.
Take it as a win.
Even though I didn't do anything about it. No. All right, Dan.
Just knowing the reason for the traffic signal is more interesting. Not much, I was gonna pick up on the Palo issue and there is paved, a very wide paved shoulder across from the basement. There may be room to do that. Last meeting, we talked about shuttle buses for employees and others, and I just want to remind that that would be a useful agenda item for. And finally, people do want to say that Bixby has gotten better, and Supervisor Daniels has played a useful role. Props to her, and yeah, that's what I've got.
Cool.
All right, couple updates from the LP. Our course order for no camping at Senator 4 is set to expire. However, we're going to do our best to get that extended. Also related to traffic entering and exiting Highway 1, the forest is working to finalize the Plasket Bridge Road designated as first pilot project for the PRRDD. So that project's basically going to look at structuring parking on Plasket Ridge Road, looking at designated dispersed connected areas, trying to reduce wilderness intrusions, trying to protect natural resources, with the goal of no net loss of canopy. So hopefully no impact on causing more roadside. So that's something we're looking to finalize here in the next months, and would be implemented. Right, a few updates. One, I've been out of the office for the last 2 months, since our last meeting. So one of the things that I promised to do that I failed to do was to set up our invasive species subcommittee, which I will be reconvening after this meeting, and hopefully find a way to pull that into the highway management plan update, which to make sure that we have a voice in getting those issues brought up through the plan. So that's one. Second is the Garrett Potter restroom project that has been presented in the past Bismack meetings, and we've held public on-site meetings last summer. We took quite a few of the comments that we received from community about visual impacts and traffic analysis for those two locations, one at Silverance Canyon and the second one at Garrett Potter Beach. So those amendments for those extra studies have just now been approved. So that project is now back on track. I'd be more than happy to present on this at the next Byways meeting, if there is room, which obviously is an important project for this group. So we'll be more than willing to provide more details on that. Those are my main two updates. I will hand it over to Mike if he has anything on the law enforcement side, and if not, that's our report.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to bring up. I recently attended a meeting at the Carmel Highlands Fire Station about point low ghost traffic in the highway. And I'm in the preliminary stages of talking to some other agencies about trying to get some sort of traffic mitigation employees, people movers around the point low ghost. Early stages, but we are looking at it. I just want them to know we're not just sitting here doing nothing. We're really looking at this every day. How can we do it better? How can we work with Caltrans, CHP, people move and do traffic control around the point low ghost. And I'm also in talks with John and Supervisor Daniels about the Bixby Bridge issue as well.
Thank you.
Question for folks. A lot of the Carmel Highlands residents were surprised at the $19 million verdict. where a woman was hit by a volunteer at the entrance to the park. Will that be appealed?
State Parks is reviewing that case and that decision hasn't been made. We respect the decision of the jury. And right now, the state is looking at what options we have available for that trial.
Even if we did know, you probably couldn't comment on legal matters. Sarah?
Okay, I know we're coming up on noon, so I'll make it quick. First of all, just have to say, I've been on the committee for 3 years, and this is the first time I've been able to come in person. So I'm very happy about the highway division. Thank you, Colin. And then my second thing, unfortunately, I'm gonna bring up safety, sorry. But it is important. So there, I'm gonna bring up a specific incident which brought up just like a general question that I have. So a few months ago, somebody rolled their vehicle. It was, I looked it up in my phone, I thought I had taken notes, but it's like a mile north of Border Mountain, just right around like the Alder area. And luckily he rolled it, he was fine. His car was upside down in a ditch and he was able to get out with no injuries, it seems like. And to more of his luck, 2 Big Sur firefighters drove by like immediately afterwards. So they called in and took care of it. And one of the responders told me that that was the 3rd rollover that they responded to in that curve. So I just wanted to bring that up. I guess the question it brought up for me, more than just that specific location, was does Caltrans have like do you share data with first responders, like Big Sur Fire, CHP, to like track where these accidents happen in order to like identify these problem areas? It's just like a curiosity that I thought I would bring up because if there's been, you know, I didn't notice signage there or anything. There could be, but yeah, just my general question.
Just a short answer, we work really closely with emergency responders, they have agencies. Really, we're waiting for their information, which is the traffic collision report, so that we know what the causation factors were. Was it speed? Was it other things related, or was it something more related to it? So those turn into investigations that we do perform. In addition to, we have a safety program that looks at collision rates application, and it's an automatic trigger if something becomes higher than statewide average for facility location, and then we also then do an investigation. So we work with the collision report, we see what, you know, that was driver or other factors, we respond with an investigation, and then if things start getting higher than what they should, then that triggers an investigation as well.
The question, maybe, John, maybe you can answer this. When does that report go in? Who submits that? Is that a law enforcement person or the first responders? So the report that triggers all this information, or does it, who decides?
Yeah, it's done through a system called Switters and statewide. Yeah, it's an acronym anyways. And so what happens is in the field, we complete accident reports, like John said. We try to find causation, the best of our ability. That data gets submitted to each area office within the state. That's shared not just within the division, but it is available throughout the state. I can't speak to exactly what the threshold would be for when that information goes from our area office to Caltrans to address a specific issue, but excuse me, I know from just my personal experience that if I see that there's an engineering design or issue that has changed over time or is new for whatever the factors may be, that poses a safety concern, I know I personally have no problem reaching directly out to Caltrans, which I've done in the past to help resolve maybe some of those issues before they become bigger. But as far as what that threshold may be and how that, when that is sent off to Caltrans, I don't know that it's not.
So just backing up one step. So first responders come, say Big Sur Fire comes, helps somebody out. There's not always somebody from the highway patrol or the sheriff there.
I mean, we've given our situation, it's not always available. What happens then? Is there an interface with the, Apollo's a good example. There was an accident, it didn't require, no law enforcement person ever got there. Is there any involvement with first responder reports that are not then accidents according to having been a law enforcement thing? I'm not saying this well, but.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that. I know that like Big Sur Fire, if they treat victims or respond to incidents, there are certain times when they'll complete internal reports. I'm not sure how that data can be shared. That'd be a great question.
We should check on that, because I think we're not getting the complete picture somehow about what's going on. And I think that would help. If we knew what was going on, maybe we would respond better. That's all.
It could be another aspect of the post-hiring management plan too.
Any way you explore protective.
Okay, anyway, that was just, are you done? Did you have more things?
That was my last thing, but yeah, that was just like another kind of idea that I had.
Okay, just a quick note that there are 2 volunteer fire departments in Big Sur. So we should. Acknowledge both of them. But.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, come on.
You know you drive the truck. Thank you for driving the truck. Mark?
Yeah, so comment and question, the earlier comment about it was a good job done by Caltrans to open up the highway again. I don't agree, I think it was amazing, just fantastic. And thank you so much. When I described to people the process it took of pinning the hillside to the bedrock so you could tether out those little spiders to the edge of the mountain, everybody wants to see a documentary. That's right. It was an amazing job. So thank you so much for that. 2 questions, actually. Now that the highway is open again, I know there was some data being collected on traffic. At one time, I don't know, now would be a good time for our next meeting to put that in the agenda, get a traffic analysis now that the.
Traffic counts are available every month for CAPS, and it's on our website and it's on their website.
Oh, okay. All right.
24/7. Step over power out. Yeah, yes.
And I'll add that there's a pending conversation that Caltrans and CAT, we're working on getting together, because there's Caltrans count as well. And now that the road is open, we're looking to try to see, what the output of that looks like. So that conversation hasn't happened yet, but that's also for.
You can go see everything up till the last month, right now, yourself.
One other question. So, the Carmel Highlands Homeowners Association owns a piece of property right attached to Highway 1, where Malpaso Road is. There's a dead tree there. It's within 12 feet of the highway, so we can't cut it down, but it's a safety hazard to anybody in this room who drives Highway 1. And we submitted a request to Caltrans to have it removed. How do we track where that is in terms of the process?
I think it depends how you submitted it. So if it was done through the customer service request line, then that's tracked. If it was more informal, I don't know how who would be assigned. But it probably wouldn't hurt to maybe again use that website that Kate's gonna pass around, maybe like describe the location and the idea, and that way it gets on. Our crews that work here in the field, the same crews that are keeping the road open, doing the pavement, are also ones doing the vegetation and any sort of trash removal. So, the work's prioritized, they're spread thin, but if it's submitted in a way that we can track it, then something that should be done.
All right. I'm gonna keep us a little longer today. For those of you who can't stay, I apologize for that, but I think there's some more to be done. And I was gonna ask, our folks in the back there, now Mike, you've already spoken about anything you want to speak about? Any of you three?
The only thing I was gonna add was that at a lot of these meetings, and see how passionate everybody is about Big Sur, it's really awesome. And a lot of it comes down to these questions about illegal camping and traffic, and I share that passion. And I think what I think is we just don't have enough law enforcement in this area. And it's a shame. There's illegal camping going on the highway from basically White Lobos down to San Simeon. And we have a handful of officers from CHP, Sheriff's Department, and state parks patrolling this area. Right, incredibly thin, dealing with sold out campgrounds and medicals and search and rescues and crashes and all this crazy stuff and bar fights from, you know, stuff happening in Big Sur up to Carmel down to the far reaches of Big Sur. And it's, I wish we could be, I think I speak for both the gentleman next to me, I wish our staff could be in all these places and doing all this stuff all the time. So I'm gonna keep advocating for more law enforcement staff for state parks. For every minute back here, trying to get more staff down. So just know that I'm not sitting there doing nothing. I hear you guys very happy. I agree. I mean, I grew up around the sheriff's office. My dad worked there for 34 years. We have less deputies on the street right now than when my dad started in 1968. So, I can echo the point that budget season is coming up. The board is gonna decide what budget the sheriff's office gets here pretty soon, and without the public actually showing up to the board of supervisors meeting and telling them, hey, we need more deputy sheriffs. I have 42 deputies on patrol right now. Everybody's working 12-hour shifts. Today I had 2 sick calls, so that means I have 6 deputies working in the entire county. So, and that is absolutely horrible. It's a shame that our budget has gotten to the point that it's gotten to right now. We've had cut after cut after cut over the years. I'm not saying it's this administration's problem or the previous board of supervisors' problem, but everybody contributed to it a little bit. And every year it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And I mean, God forbid you guys have an active shooter down here. Or the worst case scenario, you know, something that may pop up, you're not gonna have anybody show up for a while. So, it's something I'm very passionate about. I wanna make sure that you guys have what you need. I'm gonna try to meet with them after this to go look at some property where we might be able to get a resident Big Sur deputy, but the way our budget is looking like right now, probably not gonna happen. Just to be honest with you guys. I'm sorry if I come across as a little bit blunt and a little bit short, but that's just my personality. But, no, I would like to see it improve, but it's not gonna improve if your people go before the board where you contact your state representative and say, what are you guys doing? And where are you putting your money? Because there's no point in making the road nice and safe if you don't have anybody to enforce the laws.
I'd like to respond to that a little bit about what we could do here. One of the things I'm passionate about here is I think we tend to look too narrowly at what money is available. We all fight over the scraps that are getting ever smaller, instead of saying, there are programs particularly designed for places like scenic byways, which have a transient population that requires services to the tune of millions of visitors. If we together can work towards accessing other people's money, that is also a way to help with some of the problems that we have here. And that's kind of one of the reasons I thought an organization like this might be useful. Rather than fighting for the crumbs, let's see if we can make the pie bigger. Both state and federal programming does exist, and one of the ways that I think becomes accessible are through programs like the CABS traffic counter. Simple program, we now have some data that says how many actual people actually come, so that were we to try to access a program that says we have a need for some additional law enforcement per capita during the times when these surges occur, we might be able to back it up with more than a one-way. And so every time we get accident reports or incident reports or formal recorded descriptions of what the lacks are, those can help us all work together to formulate more compelling requests for funding outside of the usual places where we know that it's not been effective in the past, and we know that the priorities are really, really difficult to compete with. So put it forward as an opportunity with this. I'm hoping that this collaboration can help us look at those kinds of opportunities and maybe be helpful. And I mean, obviously helping each other help. Anyway, my editorial, thank you, gentlemen. Is there anything else you want to throw in before we move along? Patty, do you want to say a
I
few
would
words?
just like to say on behalf of myself and Big Sur community, thank you. Thank you for all the times you respond. The Big Sur fires in Mid-Coast, super appreciated. I know I feel a bit safer, and driving the highway. I know that we can also help you with moving things. So I just want to really say thank you very much.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add from Caps while you're talking?
Well, one thing I'd like to add is I'm really glad John Hiles brought up the invasive species subcommittee. I think that is super important. And it's not just the Jubata and Genesta, but I'd also, in a positive way, like to bring up the calla lilies north of Garrapatta Beach. And I really feel that potentially could be a community project, educational, where we can support the state parks in dealing with that watershed and those calla lilies. So just want to bring up that. And I'd like to give you our website address, Mark, so you can have it for the traffic counter. And that traffic count is useful for all of you, especially when you're talking about budgets and needs. So.
Yeah, I was trying to make a comment about budgets, I'm sorry. One thing, so I'm a member of the Carmel Rotary Club. We make grants of $300,000 a year, and we're not terribly unusual. There's a lot of Rotary clubs in the county that make grants. We've made grants for the purpose of public safety, like buying drones. We know you're thin on boots on the ground, so by adding drones, we've actually made grants to law enforcement that's requested on other Rotary clubs too as well. It's just out of the box thinking of getting funded. I wish we could do what you're asking. It's not up to me, but I just want to point that out, that there are funds available. Yeah, and for your program as well. If your program requires funding, you can make a grant request from these Rotary clubs, and they'll. Historically, we've made some very, very generous grants to the Big Sur Fire Department, the volunteer fire department. So don't overlook those as a funding request. That's my only message.
Good message. I like it. Who else was waiting here? Comment, Mike.
No need to expand on it, but I just wanted a general comment for everybody on that calorie story. I got more inquiries about that than any other family that's had since I've lived here. So positive or negative? Both. So just something for the whole group to think about. There was a lot of inquiries from multiple different sides of how they feel about that. More media inquiries nationwide. People, somehow that story got a lot of attention, so.
I could have told you that, and I stopped for my mail, I get asked most of the time, someone will come up and say, where's Calvary Valley? If I'm getting my mail. It is, I believe, necessary to take some steps to make safe access for that. Because the place where you stand to look down on from the road is not a good place to be taking a picture, especially if you step backwards.
I just want to add one more thing. Super appreciate all of state parks' public service messages on social media. They are so informative and so spot on and so relevant. Thank you. I mean, amazing. I don't know who started that, where it all came about, but okay, excellent. Excellent messages. You're getting to meet those who are out in the field. They're really, really good.
All right, anybody in the room, something pressing you want to add? Anybody online? Sarah?
I just wanted to shout out the Big Sur Lodge and Paul specifically for helping us and hosting us for BSBO today. I know he's not here, but he always is really responsive to us and working with Katie and I. And thank you all for working with us on this location for the day.
Fabulous. And I wanted to, my last final thing, assuming we don't have many hands up, was to thank you guys. Because we're only able to do this because Katie and Sarah, make it possible for us to notice meetings and send out information and keep minutes and all the things that make us have any existence in the real world whatsoever. So thanks to you guys so much. We appreciate it. We look forward to trying to find some more institutional support as we go forward and become more real. And with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting with no objection at 12:18. Thank you all for coming and sticking it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Later in, Forest Service.